smallest of small businesses. So I can't say enough about this program. Oftentimes you hear about programs that the government has in place, but they're so inaccessible. This program is very accessible, and I'm happy to be on the panel today, especially with folks that have received those grants. And congratulations to you, and I look forward to participating in this conversation.
Thank you so much, Keith. We're gonna go over and bring our other panelists in to share more. And so we've got Gary and Theresa and Doc to share today. So what I'd love for the three of you to do is to share kind of what your business or organization does. Just give us a real brief overview about that, and a bit about how the pandemic has impacted your business, and a bit about SVOG and why you decided to apply. So can we start with you, Theresa?
Certainly. I'm Theresa Davis. I'm the Executive Director of Theater Tallahassee. Theater Tallahassee is a community theater in Tallahassee. We've been here since 1949, so we've been serving the community for over 70 years. The pandemic really hurt everyone, but it really hurt arts organizations and theaters. We were forced to close our doors on March 17th, 2020, and we were finally able to reopen to limited audiences for our final show of the season in June 2021. So we switched to some virtual programming, which isn't maybe everybody's cup of tea for live theater, because you need that live theater experience and actually being there. But we wanted to still provide product for our patrons. So we did our best of recording our shows and putting them out there. We are looking forward to reopening for a full season in August. But we lost about 82% of our income last year with our doors closed, and that was including our virtual programming and everything. So it was a no-brainer for me to apply for the Shuttered Venues. It's not a competitive grant, so if you qualify for it, you will get the money. So I encourage anyone who can qualify for this to actually take a chance. I mean, you've got nothing to lose.
Thank you so much, and congratulations on your award. That's really fantastic news. Let's jump over to you, Doc.
Hi. Number one, I just want to thank you for having me. It's just an honor to be on a panel with such amazing guests. Most of them I know. And I'm Darius Dr. Baker, the Executive Director of Tallahassee Nights Live, founder, creator. We are a 16-year production here in Tallahassee that basically travels, and we're a platform for artists to go to the next level. It's just a love that I've had, a vision that God gave me, and that we move forward. And we have people that's gone through Tallahassee Nights Live that have won Grammys and all types of awards. And it's just a blessing to be able to be that platform, or one of the many platforms here in Tallahassee with Tallahassee Nights Live. Like I said, 16 years, we've never experienced something like this. None of us have. And when this happened, we actually had a sold out cruise, our third one that was on Carnival. Of course, we had to cancel that, refund all the money for that. I had a deposit down on a charter bus that's going to take us down to Orlando, where we're going to port out of. Of course, I didn't lose that deposit, but I mean, we all were affected. So I didn't expect the charter company to refund that. So that's sitting. We had a show that we were actually doing that had to be canceled. We've also lost about maybe 80, upwards of 85%. We haven't had a paid event since March. It's been like 16 months. And when you think of what these musicians do for a living, a lot of musicians that I know personally that come through TNL, they can make anywhere from $800 a week gigging, professionally. It's what they do. When you cancel out all of the events, all of the venues that can't have this, it could be detrimental to families. I've had people that say that they lost apartments, they applied for rent, applied for all that type of assistance, and they couldn't keep up with it. I mean, it's really disheartening. So when I heard about this grant and what it could do, I haven't gotten awarded for it. But I did apply, and I spread the information to everyone. I think it's a blessing. And one of the things that we do at Tallahassee Nights Live, we have a virtual meeting as well every Monday. I have CPAs and financial advisors that come on and stress the importance of keeping up with your books, keeping up with all of your expenses. As a work for hire musician, I play. I'm a musician as well, so I know when you know sometimes you get paid in cash at the end of the night. Sometimes sometimes you don't get paid. Yes, in some situations, but you can't look at it as being, okay, why did this person get awarded and I didn't? Most times you qualify just like the other person, but you may not have your books in order. You may not have, your tax returns, your Schedule Cs, in order for a lot of grants and a lot of people that want to help you to know how much you lost, they got to know how much you would have made, how much you made, and having those books in order is so important. So that's one of the things that we were able to implement through this reset. I look at it as it was hard for all of us to go through, but it also, this pandemic gave us an opportunity to reset and start doing things the right way so we can actually get some of these grants and assistance that's out there to help us maintain. So I'm so blessed to be a part of this, and I'm just happy to be a part of this panel today.
Thank you so much, Doc. That document ready piece is just so important. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Gary, over to you. Can you talk a little bit about you and your experience?
Sure. I appreciate being among this esteemed panel, and thank you, Kathleen, for hosting this. I think it's very important for small businesses and small venues like ours to understand what's available. My wife and I have run the Bradfordville Blues Club since 2002. We are a small live music venue. Our max capacity is 120. So this grant is designed for folks and businesses like ours that are small. We only have a couple of employees, and the pandemic hit us very, very hard, as it did so many other businesses, particularly those people who are in the entertainment and live music industry. We lost 90% of our revenues. Our last show was March 14, 2020. And we did not have any live ticketed shows until March of 2021. Fortunately, we had community support that kept us alive. And unfortunately, many other smaller venues weren't able to stay alive. If you've been able to stay alive, if you are still in business, this program, this SVOG program, is a great opportunity to get back on your feet financially. We took advantage of it. We have received our grant, and it is helping us keep the club alive. And we have reopened in March of this year, starting doing outside shows, and we've moved back indoors because of the weather. Who knows what the Delta variant may bring for our indoor shows. Right. But in the event that we do have another surge, at least we have a financial cushion that'll keep us going for the time being. So if you're a small business, you're a mom and pop operation, this is designed for you. You don't have to be a major operation with accountants and CPAs and tax advisors. It is a daunting task, I will say that. But once you put in the time and the effort and you do it right, it can provide financial security for your operation, from paying bands to paying overhead to paying rent to paying contractual obligations. There is a great deal of benefit to getting this award. It is worth the effort. It is worth the time, I promise you.
Thank you for that. And I think that gives us a really good transition then into the application itself. So that's the thing that I've heard too, is that it feels really daunting, but when you commit to it, then away you go and you get into this process. So can you talk a little bit about that itself, the process itself, and how you approached applying, and also how many hours it took to make this thing happen? I mean, Doc has already talked about being document ready, and so maybe we should start with that piece of it. So what does it mean to you to be document ready? And let's start with you, Doc.
Well, I mean, it's shown me that it could be the difference of you getting getting awarded and not. Being confident in your numbers. Sometimes people say, they're kind of scary to, give that information, thinking that it may get, audited and things of that nature. If your business is done right and you have your numbers there, it is what it is. And folks want to help. Folks want to help you. So it really showed me to get a certified CPA, to go back and get all of my documents in order, so I wouldn't be guessing. I wouldn't be, just estimating numbers. And it could be intricate, but like Gary said, it's worth it. Take the time. And if you have to get someone to give you that confidence, a professional to go in and make sure your numbers are in order, then do that, because they want to help. And the grant is there for us to help. So I'm in the process of getting that help so I can, go ahead and apply the right way.
That sounds great. So we're talking about 2019 tax returns, 2020. And what other documents did you need to put in place? And I'll just toss this out to the room, and also to you, Keith, too, because you're seeing all of this too, right? So what are some of the other documents to be document ready that you would need to make sure are in place?
Well, as far as your budgeting numbers, you actually need 2019, 2020, and then the first quarter of 2021. And you need to break those numbers, your income numbers, down as earned revenue and gross revenue.
Right.
To apply for the grant. But if you go to the SVOG, they actually have provided a lot of documentation to help everyone along. There's an application checklist and there's an application user guide. And the user guide actually has every single question that is on the grant. And it gives you details of what information, what supplemental materials you need. And I actually used that and made sure, and actually wrote little notes on it. This is the document I'm going to submit with that. Because while there are a lot of documents, most organizations should be able to pull them together.
Yeah, I was going to add, it is, there is a lot of documentation, but having it ready is the difference. Having that accessible is the difference. There's a couple of nuances, especially for nonprofit organizations. So if you're a nonprofit and you're thinking about applying for the grant, you have to include your 2018 tax returns if you haven't filed for the 2020 tax returns. And then, just for everyone that applies, you have to be able to document that you're a legally duly formed entity. So there's requirements that you provide that either you filed in the state of Florida as an LLC or S corporation or C corporation, but those types of business documentations and certifications are required. And then, as Teresa has said, there is a very useful checklist that SBA provides, and I would start there with the checklist before you get into the application itself. Go through the checklist. And as Doc has said, if you need to involve your accountant or your bookkeeper, bring your accountant and bookkeeper into the mix to make sure that you have the accurate information and that you're not guessing, because you don't want to leave money on the table, and you also want to make sure that what you are submitting you're going to get the most consideration to demonstrate the economic loss that you've experienced.
That's great. Gary, anything more to add?
Yes, I wholeheartedly agree with Keith. There's a great deal of documentation that the SBA makes available to clients. One document in particular is the user guide. It actually walks you through the application. But preliminarily, there is the SBA SVOG preliminary application checklist. You can download that at the SBA site, and that is a perfect template to begin your process of deciding what you need to do, what documentation you need. It then leads you into the application itself. I would spend some time going through the application before you put any documentation down or before you put any information down, just to get an idea of what they are looking for so that you know what you have to assemble. It took us more time, I think, to assemble all of the documents that we submitted with the application than it actually did to submit or complete the application itself. The SBA also has a number of documents, frequently asked questions regarding the application process, the post-application process. Very importantly, the SBA has instructional videos. They are very helpful. Most of them are short, 5, 10, 15 minutes. Highly recommend that you take a look at those videos before you start putting pencil to paper to get an idea of what is it that they want from you. And more importantly, make sure you take the time to assemble the documents that they need. You are going to have to assemble your financial statements, your tax returns, your corporate documents. There is a lot of documentation that you will have to assemble and scan, because as you complete the application, they want you to attach the documents that support your statements in that application. So it's imperative that you take the time to start assembling the documentation so that you make sure you have everything that they need. Very importantly, the SBA requires about 6 or 7 certifications. Do not leave any of those certifications out. That is part of the application. If you don't submit one of those certifications, your application is going to be rejected, and you could be put at the end of the list if you have to go back in and make those corrections. So it's important to do your homework before you start filling out the application.
That's great. This is just such great advice. So the when we talk about, you know, all these documents and putting those together, can you give anyone that's interested in applying an idea of how should they plan for it as far as the amount of time? Like, did you do this over a couple of weeks? Did you do this over a few days? How many hours? Even if it's a ballpark estimate of what you did, just so people know. Again, it's daunting, but it's completely doable. And that's and if there's shortcuts or things that you were able to do that kind of save some time, that would be really helpful to share. So let me start with you, Teresa.
I spent several weeks. I would go in, for a few hours every day, which I watched all of their videos early on and looked at all of their checklists. When the grant was originally supposed to open in April 8th and had a little kink and didn't happen, and started pulling the documentation together because there really is a lot of documentation you need to pull together. The number of hours, I'm not sure. I'm a stickler for keeping records, so I was able to get to everything pretty easily on it. It took me with having everything prepared, it took me an hour and a half to actually upload all of it and fill out the grant when the application became available. But I had everything ready and laid out into what order I needed it in, and it's totally worth it in the end.
About an hour and a half to upload it, and then
took me. I spent several hours a day for
prepping.
Several weeks pulling everything together and making sure I had everything.
Gotcha. How about you, Doc?
Well, I was happy that it gives you the opportunity to create your portal and you can save where you left off at. So that was a great thing. So, weeks, and I'm still doing it, still kind of going through, making sure I have the right thing in order, double checking. And like I said, having an accountant to help me with some things, because I definitely didn't want to, like Keith said, you could hurt yourself by estimating and leaving money on the table, possibly. So that's why I'm just kind of taking my time, but it did give me that opportunity. I will say this, it was it is daunting, but it was a few questions that were kind of, easy, to legitimize your business, asking about, flyers or news publications from this year, whatever, all I had to do was just go on and screenshot a few things from that year, just to make sure you were doing business during those times. It was a few of those questions that were very easy, but yes, it is a process that, don't think they're just going to sit down and do it quickly. If you want to do it the right way, I wouldn't multitask at the same time. Dedicate your attention to it to get it done the right way. Great, thank you. How about you, Gary?
I agree. It took us. We started in April. There were starts and stops. Interestingly, when they restarted it, the application was different, requested more information or different information. So it's important while you are going through the process to go back to the SBA site and take a look at the updated frequently asked questions and updated information. They just posted a new frequently asked questions on July 22nd. It had information in there that I wasn't aware of beforehand. It's very important in determining how you set up your budget. You have to set forth in detail how you propose to use the money and to make sure that your proposals fit within their guidelines. The frequently asked questions provide a great deal of insight into how you can use the money and how you can tie that into your budget. Because once you submit the budget, that's how you have to spend the money. You are allowed to deviate maybe 10% from your budget projections, but it's important to make sure that you understand, how am I going to use the money? We're a club that hires bands. We allocated most of our money to paying bands. They wanted contracts dating back to 2019 and 2020 with bands to show that we were in fact paying bands, that they weren't playing for tips. That's part of the eligibility requirement. That one document, the preliminary application checklist, goes over the eligibility issues. So make sure you understand what you need to provide to them. There's one other document that's very, very important, I think, and a lot of people may not pay a lot of attention to it, but it's the certificate of need. It's an opportunity for you as the business owner to present in a narrative format what it is you do, how you intend to use the money, why you need the money. The form is basically one paragraph. It says, I need the money. Without the money, I'm going to go out of business. You can provide a lot more detail to guide the people who are reviewing your application, to give them an idea of who you are, what you do, so that it ties into all the numbers and all the documents that you have attached to the application. But I know we spent close to 40 hours between assembling the documentation, preparing well ahead of time, reviewing the videos and all the documents that they have on the website before we even started putting the application together. The application itself is going to take 12 hours or so, depending upon how well organized you are. But don't be deterred. It may seem like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work. But it is well worth it if you can qualify, because this is money you can use to keep your business alive. And it is a free loan. You don't have to pay it back. You don't have to pay interest. So if you want to keep your business going, it is worth the effort, but you need to put the effort in to make sure you do it right and give them what they're asking for.
Absolutely. It's such a game changer. Thank you so much for that. Keith, I was thinking about, everything that we've been talking about here from your perspective. Are there other things that you want to add to the conversation about what you're seeing from on your end? Any tips as people are looking at applying or are going to apply that we need to cover?
Yeah, from what we're seeing, we are seeing that people are attempting to take advantage of the program in terms of, demonstrating that they have suffered an economic loss. I think the best thing that we have been advising our clients that have applied and are in the process of applying for the grant is to make sure that you take into account all of the information that's available for you. SBA has a dedicated line specifically for those questions. And I mean, we're here to help as well. But as Gary says, the program continues to change. There are updates to the program almost on a daily basis. So we have to stay in the loop on those things as well. So I would just say the most important thing is to be patient, be flexible, and be transparent. That is the best way to go about applying for these funds. And the again, there's videos that will help guide you through the application process. You can SBA has a dedicated line, 800 number that's available from 8 o'clock until 8 p.m. Where if you have like some questions about technical questions or just questions in general about your application, once you begin the application process, as Doc has said, you'll be given sort of like a username to access your application in that portal. Make sure that you reference that when you contact SBA or even when you contact the Small Business Development Center, because we're able to convey that information to the technical assistance team. But we can talk specifically about what is going on with your application. And I think that the biggest thing is one of the biggest setbacks that we've seen is not having the required information at the time when you're starting to make the application. So I just think it's imperative that you kind of like plan to make this application, work through the checklist, gather that documentation. If you're not sure about what documentation, or if there's some confusion because there are a lot of acronyms, there are a lot of form numbers, there are a lot of different disclosures and things that maybe this is your first time seeing them. But before you jump in and start to guess at it, pick up the phone, call the Small Business Development Center, or call that hotline number and ask someone who has working knowledge of how the application process goes and what SBA is really asking you for, and they can explain it to you in terms that you will be able to understand.
That's great. Thank you. And just to point out in the chat, we did add the SBA's website. So there's a link right to the application. So thank you, Lisa Sunshine, for asking that. Lisa also had a question about how much all of you have received, so or are hoping to receive. So can we just do a round robin on that? And then I'm going to come back to you, Keith, with a couple of other questions, especially about the awards and the supplemental and the timeline. So let's first start off with how much are we talking about here for all this work? So why don't we start with you, Gary?
They tell you how much you're going to get. You don't ask for an amount. You submit a budget, you submit your financials, and they tell you what you are entitled to, and that's how much they're going to deposit in your account. We got over $100,000, slightly over $100,000, which for a small business like ours is manna from heaven. And the key is when you get that money, put it into a separate interest-bearing account. Do not commingle your SVOG funds with your operating account, your payroll account. Talk to your financial advisors if you have an accountant, if you have a bookkeeper. But one of the first things we did, as soon as we got the money, we transferred it over to a separate SVOG account, because you have to account for how you spent the money during the quarterly reporting periods following your receipt of the grant. We're trying to figure out how to best use the money, but again, your budget tells you how you can use the money. Make sure you spend time figuring out your budget. Where are you going to use the money? Is it going to paying rents? Are you going to be paying payroll? Are you going to be paying bands? Are you going to be paying other contractual obligations? I found out the other day that for small bars like ours, we can even use the SVOG money to purchase our beer and wine from our distributors. That is very, very helpful. That's one of our biggest expenses. We can pay our insurance with this. So it's important to go ahead and make sure you spend time putting your budget together, because no matter what you get, you're going to end up having to spend it as you said you were going to spend it within a certain parameter, 10% or so.
That's great. Thank you. How about you, Teresa?
Theater Tallahassee received, I mean, we have actually received it, $176,000. Yes, it was a game changer for the theater, of course. But they do, like said, they tell you how your amount, it's based on 45% of your earned revenue from 2019. So you could go in and figure out what your amount is going to be before you even set out on this process to apply for it. And when you go to pay for it, use the money, it actually goes back to expenses paid that you incurred in 2020. So all the way back to March 2020 through December 2021, you can use those expenses. So you can recoup some of the losses that you incurred while we were closed.
It's amazing. How about you, Doc? I know within this process, do you have an idea of what you think that you may be able to get?
Right. Well, I've been told by our CPA that, expected to receive around 75 or 80,000. When you're looking at employing 36 musicians throughout the year, this will help. I really wanted to kind of give them a little cushion as well, because our licenses, bills, and all types of expenses, they kept going. They kept going throughout the year. So a lot of that I bear, to pay, and I was blessed throughout the process. I'm the program director at Hallelujah 95.3. So I still had some income coming. Thank God. A lot of the musicians didn't have any at all. And that this will help when awarded, if it is to happen, to kind of alleviate some of the hardships that they experienced over this past 16, 17 months, and kind of get them back on their feet. With TNL, with no events, no gigs, some of the expenses still rolled, but it just kind of lied dormant for a while throughout the pandemic. So, through the grace, we endured, and things are opening back up, and I'm happy to be at Theater Tallahassee on August the 8th. That was one of the events. And so happy to have Kathleen on, but due to the pandemic, she knows we were planning to do that event, had everything set, but we had to be careful and take safety first, and we had to cancel it, and all of that revenue was lost. But we're going to be back on August the 8th there at Theater Tallahassee. I'm so happy to be there with Kathleen, and we're going to start up again. I think things are going to bounce back.
I appreciate that. Yep, I appreciate your positive attitude, and we do. The saying that's been used is, first to close, last to open, and the opening is happening slowly, and the pent up demand is really helping that out. When you're talking about a financial bounce back, that's going to be so much slower, which is one of the reasons why this legislation also had kind of what I called a twofer. So you get your award, and there's a possibility of another award after this. And so, Keith, can you just talk a little bit about that? Especially about the supplemental?
Yeah, the supplemental, once you're awarded and you have received the notification and the funding for the grant, SBA will go in and reevaluate after they've worked through all of the pending applications to see if you're eligible for additional funding. And let me back up a step. If you have applied and you felt that you didn't receive the funding that you were entitled to, the process for reconsideration begins August 2nd. If you applied and you were, for whatever reason, they declined your application, the process for reconsideration for declined applications begin August 4th. So they will open the portal, and then you'll be able to go in and ask for reconsideration if you didn't receive enough or if you were declined. But the supplemental award, that is going to be earmarked for those businesses that have applied, received funding, and still may need additional funds to get them over the hump. And SBA will make a determination. There's not a real application process. You should receive an email inviting you to for consideration for the supplemental, and they'll ask you some questions. And then if it's and we're hearing that it's going to mirror sort of like the economic injury disaster loan. So they'll use the information that you have previously submitted as part of your application and make a determination if you would be eligible for more. You don't ask for an amount. They basically make that determination using a formula that they have, and then they will send that amount to you if you're eligible, or offer that, and then you would have to accept or decline.
And can you talk, this is really tremendous information. And again, just so timely, since we're still in the process of trying to make all this, happen and get this live performance back again. Keith, can you talk to us a little bit about timeline? You've got the August 2nd and the August 4th portal openings for anybody that's been declined or for reconsideration. But the grant program itself, is this going to chug along for a while? Because we did hear about taking time to get the application ready and document ready. So is there a timeline that the SBA has set on this program, or is this just open until the money runs out? Or what's your thoughts on that?
They have not set a deadline for the application. Everything that we're hearing on our end is that they are going to leave this program open until funds are allocated. So that's good news. And as you stated, a certain percentage has been earmarked. I believe $2 billion has been specifically earmarked for applicants that have less than 50 employees. So they're really trying to make sure that the money gets into the hands of the smallest of the small businesses that have been impacted, more severely than some of the larger ones. But as of today, they have not published any deadline for the application to drop off.
Great. So there's still definitely time to apply.
Yes.
And, I always, as a person that also works, we run our own grant programs. And so we always say the sooner the better.
Right.
But it does sound like, that would apply here. The sooner the better, but under the auspice that you need to be document ready.
Yes.
So as soon as you can get your documents ready, then apply, get that application in. That's great. We've been getting a couple of questions here from the chat, so we've been able to answer those. If there's anyone else that would like to submit a question to the chat, please do, and we can go ahead and make sure that we get your question answered. Keith, I'm going to go ahead and go back to you too, in regards to the program. And the things that you talked about earlier about some of the things that you're seeing that have prevented people from applying, or maybe they applied and they were declined. But within this program itself, what would be some of your, if you're local and or regional and you need some help with this grant, are there some resources that you'd suggest? We did post the SBA's website in the chat, and we put the helpline for the SBA on there, the 800 number. So,
yeah, sure. Well, the Small Business Development Center here at FAMU, for those local businesses, we are available to assist you at no cost. We're open from Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock until 5 o'clock. We have 5 certified business consultants that have experience in helping clients apply and helping you compile the required information. And they will sit down with you and walk you through the process, hold your hand as you work through the process. As if anything comes up that is beyond our scope of knowledge, we have a direct line to technical assistance at SBA. And we have a network of 8 other small business development centers throughout the entire state of Florida. We cover an 8-county region, but we have sister centers and in every other region throughout all 67 counties in Florida, offering the same level of assistance at no cost. So I would just say, we're here to help you. We welcome you. And also I'd like to mention, because one of the things that I think may have created a stumbling block from the beginning was the access to technology. So, you have to, everything is done online. So you have to make sure that you have, you're submitting your application with the right internet browser. You have access to a valid email, because a lot of the communication, all of the communication is done through a valid email address. So we've got a computer workspace at the Small Business Development Center. So you are welcome to come in again between our hours of operation. Use our computers. If you want to print out documents there, you can print those documents out. So there's just a ton of resources. We don't currently have a SCORE chapter in Tallahassee, but if you're outside of Tallahassee, SCORE is another resource that will be able to assist you. There are also women business assistance centers throughout the state that provide the same level of assistance, again, all at no cost.
It's fantastic. And then I'm just going to make a plug here for COCA can also help facilitate. If you need to find these places, we can help you facilitate that and get you connected with the right people. We also, I'm on a call every week with Americans for the Arts, which is on a call every day with the SBA. And so, especially if you're having very specific problems, like there's some club owners that have not been, they've gotten awards, and there might be some, they haven't actually gotten paid yet. And so Americans for the Arts is also helping pass that information along and working with the SBA so that everybody can get those technical issues solved. So that's how COCA can also help out with this. There's another question in the chat here. I know we're running down to the wire here, but here's one more question, and that is, if the organization whose budgets are small enough for the IRS to require a postcard, would a postcard be a tax return? And so when we're talking about being document ready.
No.
Okay, so there you go. So no.
One other organization that I would recommend is NIVA, National Independent Venues Association, NIVA, Google them. They have been very, very helpful in answering questions and guiding folks to the right places in completing the application and administering the funds once you get them. So there are other sources available. NIVA is one that I've used successfully.
That's terrific. Well, and if you go to our COCA Tallahassee Arts Guide, then at Tallahassee Arts, we have actually a whole SBA section. So we've basically taken SBA and NIVA and like Americans for the Arts, and like we have all these links listed there. And if you want a shortcut to that information, give us a call or pop us an email. We're at info@tallahasseearts.org. You can give us a call at 850-224-2500, and we can get you connected with the right people. So we're wrapping up. We're wrapping up now. We got just a couple minutes left. So I wanted is there any last parting thoughts from any of you before we go? We've got about 2 minutes left.
Keep the music alive. Do it.
Exactly. Live performance. Exactly. So that's terrific. Thank you. This has been so delightful spending, I get so privileged in this position to spend time with amazing people like all of you. And so thank you so much for being here today, to our esteemed panelists, to everyone that's joined us on Facebook, on TikTok and Instagram and all the other places that we're streaming that have joined us. Thank you so much. This is being recorded, so this will be posted both on the Domi site and on the COCA's resources website. I'm just so delighted that we were able to do this. So I want to just thank you so much to our guests today, to Doc and to Gary, to Theresa and Keith for all of the great advice and that you passed on to us and all the helpful tips. I want to give a special thank you to our co-partner in this, that did all the heavy lifting in the tech and the setup, to Robert Blackledge and Carol Holbert from Domi for co-hosting this event. And these kinds of partnerships are so important to make sure that our community is great and does wonderful things. So with that, please come to the next event, check out Domi's website and COCA, and we're going to continue to do these smart webinars, but check us out in the meantime for all the events and professional development like this event that we have here. We're also like us on Facebook, Instagram, on TikTok. And the biggest thing is get those SVOG applications in. You know where to go now in order to get that help. And thank you all so much for joining us today. So be safe, get vaccinated, and we look forward to seeing you at upcoming events. Thanks again for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for doing
Take care.
this.
Thank you again.
Thank you.